You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with Travis Reier on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Media station WTUG HD2 Northport and W265CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. This is Southern Fried Sports with Bama Online senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
If I make it through this year, I think I'm gonna put this bottle down. I guess as time goes on, I'll grow to miss it less than I will now. And I think I'm gonna tell her that I'm gonna go away for a while, till I can get this demon out.
It is 11 a.m. on a Friday morning. It is time once again for Southern Fried Sports on your home for University of Alabama Athletics, Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, part of the 247sports.com network, with you weekday mornings from 11 a.m. until noon. The show, as always, brought to you by Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Go ahead and beat the rush. Go ahead and take care of Dad in advance of Father's Day. A couple Sundays away. It's upon us. And you can do that as well as you can anywhere else with Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. We told you about those unique handprints that you can get, the little ones, even the big ones. Look. You know, you want to do an adult offspring's handprint for Dad? You can do that too. Those frames that they do them in, they're plenty big enough there at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Joined on the program by the executive producer of Southern Fried Sports, Jacob Harrison. And together we combine to form the 60-bit band of Sports Talk Radio. Jacob, you ready for the weekend?
I am, man. I'm ready to be absolutely obnoxious on my show tonight and on the show tomorrow about college football playoff expansion finally coming through.
You're ready for it. You're ready for the 12-teamer, which we don't need 12 teams. I mean, I think we all understand that. I mean, the most we really need is 8. Then we could shut up the G5s. You know, you have a spot for those folks, and then you could still have a couple wild cards, and I think you'd be fine. At large purse, have your Power 5 champs, that's really what you've got to have as a qualifier. Have your best G5 team, and then a couple of at large bids. You know, get that second SEC team in there, and then who knows where you go from there. And you know, with this expansion to 12, I kind of feel like everybody else, Jacob. I don't know about you, but you're going to probably have as many as 3 SEC teams now in this thing on an annual basis. What do you think of that, Jacob?
I'm fine with it. I just want good football that means something.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. I think there's a balance that the traditionalists want to see maintained between the integrity of the regular season and then also still being able to play this thing out maybe a little more extensively. But at the end of the day, we know it's all about the cash. It's all about the money. And so that's where 12 teams makes the most sense. You can more evenly spread the wealth and, incorporate the G5s. At the same time, you think about the television rights, things like that, what they're going to be worth. It makes a lot of sense from a financial perspective. And nothing gets done despite its continued efforts to hide behind that faux fortress that is amateurism. Nothing happens in big time college athletics without the mighty dollar being involved some way, shape, or form. 205-342-9904. That is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line. If you'd like to jump on board with us, talk some college football playoff expansion on the horizon. Big recruiting weekend for Alabama. In football, to an extent, not like last weekend where you had the 7 official visitors in football, and then you got the commitment from Le'Veon Moss, the running back from Baton Rouge, on Sunday evening. Not to that extent this weekend. Now, next weekend shaping up, football once again being a big official visitors weekend. But when you think about basketball, 5-star point guard expected on campus this weekend, Jaden Bradley from IMG Academy. Nate Oates just keeps that steady line of 4 and 5 stars. Rodney Rice, recently a visitor. Now you're going to have Jaden Bradley, a 5-star, originally from the state of North Carolina. I believe he was at Michigan last week, according to his profile at 247sports.com. Looks like Arizona coming up. And he's originally from the state of North Carolina, so the Tar Heels of UNC also in the mix for the top 10 nationally ranked player, Jaden Bradley. Let's head to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line right now as we also get ready for some super regional baseball action on the cable. Vanderbilt getting underway in Nashville with the Commodores Super Regional Series against the Pirates of East Carolina. So you got some college baseball this weekend. You got 3 series involving SEC teams getting underway today. I believe it's 3. And then a couple tomorrow, including Tennessee and LSU in Knoxville. Let's talk to Lewis first, though. Lewis, how you doing?
Doing great, Travis. The 12-team playoff, I'm fine with that as long as the top 4, get a bye, which I think Alabama would. But can I go somewhere with a question that's not quite on that topic? But Travis,
Sure.
I always like your insight about sports, and games that you've seen and your history and so forth. I have seen a lot of great Alabama games through the years. I was at the Music City Miracle as far as the Titans Buffalo Bills classic game. But the most exciting sporting event I've ever witnessed live was when Pistol Pete Maravich made, I think it was 69 points in a loss to Alabama at Coleman Coliseum. And I'm just curious, Travis, if you don't mind going down this road, what would you say is the most exciting live sporting event you ever witnessed? And lastly, sometime when you can ask him, I'd love to hear what Pops would say to that question.
I think Pops would. I think I know what Pops's will be, but I will ask him that, Lewis. I think it's gonna open some old wounds for Pops. But we'll get that out of him.
Is it a loss?
Oh, it's a loss. It's a loss.
Oh,
I think
wow.
it's a loss from 1980, and it's that means
wow.
it's deep. The wound, the scars. But Lewis, we don't mind reopening those with Pops. So we'll. He also had a high school football loss that might be up there, state championship game football loss in '65 that he may put up there too. I love it though, Lewis. We'll definitely ask him.
Okay, that's great, Travis. Enjoy your weekend. Love the show.
Thanks, Lewis. Yeah, in terms of most exciting sporting events that I've attended, it's going to be tough just based on the finish to top Alabama, Georgia, right? In the 2018 college football national championship game. How do you top that one, Lewis? Especially when you talk about finishes, a walk-off from a true freshman quarterback who was inserted into the game after halftime and Tua Tagovailoa to another true freshman in Devontae Smith, one play after taking a 16-yard sack Tua took on that first down. So it's kind of hard for me to top that one. Alabama, Georgia. I'll say another one involving Georgia. Alabama, Georgia in the 2012 SEC championship game in the old Georgia Dome there in Atlanta, Georgia, Daddy. It felt like the roof at times was going to come off that place. And if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe not as exciting, but that same type of energy. 2009 SEC championship game, some Alabama home games, 2009 Alabama LSU, 2007 Alabama LSU. And that was a 7-6 Alabama team, but there was some serious juice in Bryant-Denny Stadium, especially when Javier Arenas took the punt back in the second half for a touchdown. I'll even go into the Shula era, another beatdown, but the level of energy and crowd noise and all those things, Alabama, Florida, 2005. Unfortunately, it ended with quite the sour note, with Tyrone Prothro sustaining that career-ending injury there in the northeast corner of Bryant-Denny Stadium. But before that, it was crazy juiced. So those would be up there probably more so from the Alabama perspective. I would also say 1993 Notre Dame, Florida State, Charlie Ward at quarterback for the Seminoles, and the Irish knock off Florida State in South Bend. I was at that game at Notre Dame Stadium, which was at the time one of those game of the centuries, right? That one would be up there for me. So from a football perspective, those would be the ones I was at. Florida, Alabama in the inaugural SEC championship game, with the way that game ended. Antonio Langham's pick six to put Alabama over the top and propel the Crimson Tide to the national championship appearance against Miami in the Sugar Bowl, which they would go on to absolutely brutalize the less than modest Miami Hurricanes of that time. 205-342-9904. What about it, Jacob Harrison? Most exciting sporting event you have attended. What would you have up there at the top of the list?
I've been racking my brain because I haven't been to too many big-time events, but I did call some Georgia high school basketball playoff games. I called 4 in a row in one day. And the final game, I think it was DePaul. They had a senior player who was one of their best players, but he was dealing with some back injuries during that game. Couldn't have had more than 6 points on the game. But it was a much closer game than anticipated. But he gets a mid-range jump shot in the closing seconds and drains it. And the reaction in that tiny arena outside of Columbus, Georgia, was really awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, it can be at any level. I mean, it could be youth, it could be high school, collegiate, professional. I saw some high school football games in my time too. Robert E. Lee versus Pensacola Escambia back around 1984 on the west side of Jacksonville at Pops' alma mater, the stadium they refer to iconically as the backyard. Simply put, the backyard, because the stadium at Robert E. Lee High School, or formerly Robert E. Lee High School now, sits in the backyards of the surrounding neighborhood. And Pensacola Escambia, Jacob, had a sophomore running back by the name of Emmitt Smith. You may have heard of him. He went on to do some pretty good things, both at the University of Florida and for the Dallas Cowboys. Emmitt Smith was a sophomore and was already a phenom at Escambia High School in Pensacola. Same high school that gave you Trent Richardson a few years later. And that game went to, I'll ask Pops too, because I was there with him back around 83, 84. That game went into triple, quadruple overtime, and Escambia finally pulled it out. Lee High School at the time, by the way, had a safety you've maybe heard of. His name, Leroy Butler, went on to a great career at Florida State. Leroy was a part of that fake Ruski punt at Clemson that Florida State pulled off. Gosh, it's been 30 years ago now that happened at Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. And then Leroy went on to the Green Bay Packers and probably should be an NFL Hall of Famer I don't think it's happened as of yet, but a really good player. That was one for all time for me when you talk about high school football. So, yeah, I like it, Lewis. Good topic for us here on the program. And maybe we'll hit Charlie Potter with that as well. Charlie's seen a few, especially in his time, 6, 7, 8 years now as the beat reporter for us at BamaOnline.com. We'll check in with Charlie Potter. We'll ask Pops about that as well later in the program when Southern Fried Sports returns on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
The Alabama football countdown clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Roll Tide! Roll Tide!
There are 85 days until Alabama football. Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Occasionally cloudy. We'll have scattered to numerous showers and thunderstorms around this afternoon and tonight. The high today 86, tonight's low 72. Tomorrow partially sunny, a chance of widely scattered afternoon thunderstorms. The high at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 73 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Rumors spreading round United Texas town about the shack outside the game. You know what I'm talking about. Just let me know if you wanna go to that whole mile on the range. They got a lot of nice girls.
Back for more of a Friday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on your home for University of Alabama Athletics. Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. And at this time on Fridays, we like to check in with our good pal, Charlie Potter. My colleague there at BOL does an outstanding job covering the Alabama Crimson Tide for the 247sports.com network. Charlie, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We won't talk too much Braves because no one can figure that situation out. It doesn't seem like. Your Orlando Magic, as you told us last week, are in lottery mode. There is a couple lotteries in the state of Florida, it seems like, on an annual basis. The one the state actually has, and then the one that your favorite NBA team is a part of. So we'll try to keep it to Alabama as much as possible. And as we do that, your thoughts initially on this college football playoff expansion buzz. Is this just almost assured? Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and the Blue Bloods of a place that they already seemingly had on an annual basis? I guess when you look at the 7 college football playoffs to this point, Alabama's only missed one. I think Clemson's only missed one. So what really changes in all this, Charlie?
Yeah, for Alabama, it doesn't really seem like it's going to mean all that much. Now, just reading it, of course, it sounds like this is the way it's going to go, just 12 teams instead of 4. The only drawback would be, you would think with the way that Nick Saban recruits and, with him signing that contract extension and being in town for the foreseeable future, Alabama's going to be right there in the mix for, a top seed. And my biggest beef, and I think a lot of people have said this on social media, is so Alabama would get a first-round bye, and that's deserving, but then they wouldn't get to host a game on campus, and that's not, ideal, and that doesn't seem fair, and it just doesn't, I don't know. I don't like that aspect of it, but just in terms of, Alabama fans and you're talking about the playoffs, really what changes? If Alabama loses a game, I still think they'll be right there in the mix. They'll be in the playoffs. So, I think it's with the expansion, it just means, Alabama has a little bit more room for error to be there, because if they're a team that goes out and say loses a game late in the season, they're still going to be right there in the mix because of what they've established, what they've been, and just the team that they are. They'll be in the mix for the playoff hunt, and it's going to be hard for them not to make the field, I think.
Yeah, the blowback, as you said, seems to have more to do with if you're a top 4, yes, you get a bye, but you don't get the on-campus home game. That say, I guess, 5, 6, 7, 8 might get in that scenario of having a first-round game, and that's important. Not only because you'd like to see your team be able to do that, but financially, what it means to the boon that it can be with that extra game, right, for a playoff game in your home stadium, and the financial impact for the city of Tuscaloosa and others. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of navigate that process as far as formatting. And boy, the Rose Bowl, you can't finish off the Rose Bowl, I guess, because the Rose Bowl continues to be a central figure in all this. Here's what I say for the Rose Bowl. Give the Rose Bowl 7-5, 5th place Pac-12 versus 8-4, 6th place Big Ten. And those people will be happy. I don't even think they really care about being a part of the playoff. They just want their traditional matchup of Big Ten, Pac-12. So give them that. Give them a 7-5 and an 8-4. They can have the parade the morning of the game. They can play at 2 p.m. local time like they are adamant about doing on New Year's Day. That's how you deal with the Rose Bowl. But, Charlie, what do you think about, this scheduling of late, since we talk about it, the home and homes that we continue to see from Greg Byrne in Alabama and Nick Saban?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's going. I mean, you talk about the benefits of having a potential playoff game on your home field. Alabama's been a big proponent of these neutral site games, and those are going away. I mean, obviously they're going to play Miami and Atlanta this year, but next season starts these home and homes with going to Texas and then them returning the trip. But adding, Oklahoma State and Boston College, I don't think it moved the needle just a ton. It's not as big as the traditional blue bloods like a Texas, like a Ohio State, a Notre Dame, some of the teams they already have on the schedule down the road. But it shows that they're trying to schedule at least 2 Power 5 opponents out of conference each season. That's big because it's rewarding for fans because you get to see some of these teams come to Tuscaloosa, but you also get to travel to some of those. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of the job is going to these different college towns and these different stadiums and experiencing the game there. And I'm looking forward to the game at Texas next year. But of the two, I think going up to Boston would be a little more exciting than going to Stillwater, Oklahoma. But I still think the fact that they're adding teams like this, it shows Greg Byrne's commitment to doing this, to changing the scheduling aspect. And, I think for Alabama fans, it has to be exciting because you get to go to these different places and you get to experience a Texas come to Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2023. You get this down the road. You never know what's going to happen with these, but you get in 2029, you get Oklahoma State and Tuscaloosa, and then you travel to Notre Dame. I think that these are smart. I think this is the way that that Alabama's schedule is going to look for the foreseeable future because they have these scheduled between next season and through the 2020 or 2035 season. So I think that these are here to stay, and I think they might not be, like I said, the blue bloods, but I still think Alabama fans are excited to get out and to go to some of these places down the road.
It seems like every time one of these future series is scheduled, and we look at the dates because they're getting pushed out into the 30s now, the 2030s, we try to connect dots in relation to Nick Saban's shelf life as the head coach at Alabama. Is there a threshold at this point, though, Charlie, that you look at and say, that might be really pushing it when we're talking about this series?
Yeah, I mean, whenever they announced the Boston College series, the first game, I believe it was in 2031, and he had in the release, they had a quote from Nick Saban. And I was like, they probably didn't get that one in there. But, I mean, you and I have talked about it, just looking at the way that this future non-conference schedule sets up. I've always thought that West Virginia series is key. Him being a native of the state, obviously, going there in 2026 and then a return trip in 2027. I think Saban will try to stick around for that at the very least. Now, of course, his new contract goes through 2028. That's a year where you welcome Ohio State to town and get Oklahoma State on the road. So that would be a great send-off if that's in fact his last year. But yeah, I mean, when you have some of these that are coming out with, Boston College in 2031 and then again in 2034, I don't know that we'll see, Nick Saban coaching in those.
One of our callers, Lewis, checked in the first segment and asked the question in regards to most exciting sporting event you, Jacob, our listeners have attended. And for me, it was hard not to go with one in which we sat side by side in the press box at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for. We did the same at a pretty good one out in Glendale, Arizona, too, though, Charlie.
Yeah, the one in Atlanta, 2nd and 26. I just remember, I think as soon as the ball left to his hand and Smitty caught it in the end zone, I think we just bumped elbows in disbelief and just started laughing.
I think we were trying to make sure we were both awake.
Yeah, exactly. It was a crazy game. Obviously, Alabama trailed at halftime. You make the switch at quarterback, and Tua leads the team back, and Georgia has a meltdown, and Alabama wins the game. It was a surreal experience to be a part of. You have two SEC teams playing in the national championship game in Atlanta. Hell, the president was there. All the things that was led up to the build up of that, just the talk that day and the security. It was a wild college football game with an unbelievable ending that I don't know can be topped. So that one was crazy. This past year too, some of those games, just the way that Alabama won them, and with all of the differences, all of the restrictions because of the pandemic, some of those are memorable. I mean, the national championship game down in Miami, the convincing way they won, and just experiencing that with all the plexiglass is something I'll probably remember for a long time. But yeah, it's tough to top Atlanta in January of 2018, just in the nature it was one. And I'll never forget just you and I looking at each other in disbelief and just starting to laugh.
We were literally mouths wide open, literally, after that play. And plus, one of our photographers, Stuart McNair, got trucked by Irv Smith, right, in the aftermath. So it has to be up there. Famously got trucked in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, obviously you see all these different camera angles and stuff, so you can see Stuart getting trucked in a variety of different ways. But I think my favorite was someone reenacted the play in Legos, like stop action animation with Legos, and they included Stuart getting run over in that. So yeah, that's also something.
When you make it CGI, remember, you've made it. Wow. You know what though? I mean, we're just talking wins. I think if not for that game, we'd still talk a lot about that win over Clemson in Glendale. You talk about a game that had it all, especially in the second half. Saban pulling out the onside kick, Kenyon Drake with the kickoff return, O.J. Howard going crazy, Jake Coker making big play after big play, Deshaun Watson dropping dimes all over the place. And you consider the people that were on the field that night. That one, I think, has paid the price of Alabama, Georgia a couple of years later, and even the Alabama loss to Clemson in Tampa. I mean, you lose a game with 1 second left on the clock. It doesn't get any more nail-biterish than that.
No, I mean, the game in Arizona was wild. I personally just loved that trip in general. I know people have talked a lot about bowl games and, mentioned like the Fiesta Bowl, but the media hotel, the whole setup there was awesome. But the game,
it was pimp.
Yeah. The game lived up to the hype. And, I mean, there were in that game just so many, I guess, Daniel Moore-like plays with the kickoff return for a touchdown, all the plays that O.J. Howard made, the onside kick. I remember just, being in the locker room and talking to Marlon Humphrey and Bobby Williams about that. And it was a surreal moment in that regard. But, yeah, I mean, that's another all-timer. It's just, when you win a game in walk-off fashion like that, it's tough to top 2018. But, I mean, at the same time, I mean, we've done it before in off seasons past, just trying to rank some of Alabama's wins. It's a thankless job because there's so many. But these national championship games, you can boil them down, and there's some special ones, no doubt.
Looks like on the baseball front, Alabama's going to have a new hitting coach, I guess. Jerry Zulli has decided to move on and pursue interests outside of coaching, it sounds like. I know we had some BOL subscribers on the roundtable that hadn't been all that happy about Alabama's offensive performance, Charlie, during the recently completed season. So I guess it'll be interesting to see where Brad Bohannon goes in that move.
Yeah, with Jerry Zulli, he was Coach Bohannon's first hire at Alabama when he took the job. They were on a trajectory up just in terms of batting average and the way that they were hitting. But this year, it took a step back. I think they batted as a team 260, and that was the second lowest average during his tenure. And so, he's stepping away to pursue other interests outside of college baseball, and Alabama will be in the market for a new hitting coach. And I know Alabama fans, especially the ones on our board, are going to be watching that closely because, like we've said, I think there's reason for optimism for this baseball team moving forward, the way that Brad Bohannon recruits. Obviously you're going to want to go out and get a guy that can do that, but, to improve in hitting, I think that's going to be a priority this offseason. And, we've seen some guys hit the portal already. I think some more are going to be coming down the line, but the off season, it's just the way it is. We're used to it, so used to it really with football, with coaching changes and players hitting the portal. It's no different for other sports, and baseball is experiencing that right now too.
And as far as Alabama men's hoops goes, I guess we're still on Josh Primo watch, and that could be the case for a couple more weeks, maybe.
Yeah, right now it looks like he's going to get invited to the NBA Combine, and waiting just for the official list on that. I haven't seen anything about Jaden Shackelford, but that's a benchmark date. Him getting an invitation there is big. If he can go and perform well, maybe he locks up a guaranteed contract. And, like we've talked about in the past, Nate Oates suggests for them to leave if they get that. I mean, if you get guaranteed money at the NBA level, it's tough to pass that up for what that can mean for you and your family. So, with him getting an invitation, that's big. We'll see. You would assume guys like Herb Jones and John Petty would get one. I think Jaden Shackelford's on the fence, but that's the next, I guess, big target date. They have until July to withdraw from the draft and return to school, so we still got about a month to wait. But with Primo, him getting an invitation is big, so we'll see what happens. But other than that, no news to report. Nobody's really made a decision. Nobody else has entered the draft. Nobody's entered the transfer portal. So the rosters remained the same. The guys on the newcomers have gotten on campus, and Nate Oates had some glowing reviews of them. But other than guys coming back, guys staying in the draft, it's no news right now. We'll see how the NBA Combine plays out.
And we are in the midst of what once was referred to by Steve Spurrier is talking season. I think it's more tweeting season than it's even talking season these days. But a picture that made its way onto social media in the last week or so of Alabama quarterback Bryce Young between a couple of prospective recruits for the future, I guess, at Alabama started a bit of a firestorm on social media because the opposing fan bases, it seems, took issue or were quick to point out, wow, Bryce Young looks like he's about 5'3" in this picture with these two massive recruits for the future. And it seems like maybe Bryce's father, Craig, took a little exception with that on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was a Clemson quarterback, DJ, how do you pronounce his last name? Uiagalelei. His younger brother and dad. And his dad's a big dude. I think his name's like Big Dave. When you got a nickname like that, you're a large human being. And his brother's an edge rusher, coming up in I don't exactly know what class. Hank South would know that better than me off the top of his head, but I believe he's at least 6'5". So they're big, mammoth human beings. And the truth is, Bryce Young is a smaller quarterback. That's just the crux of it. But that hasn't stopped him from being the number one player in the country. It hasn't stopped him from looking impressive when he's out in the field. The stature of a quarterback, I know, was once a big thing. You had to be 6'4". You had to be that prototypical quarterback. That's not the case anymore. We've seen guys like Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Tua, Kyler Murray, all these guys, kind of change how people look at the quarterback position. Now it's transitioned more where you need to be, mobile and able to move in the pocket and extend plays with your legs. And Bryce Young can do that. He can sure as hell zip the football. So I know that those dudes are big. Paul Tyson, heck, is a big dude. And some of the pictures of him standing beside Bryce, you can tell the height difference. But I don't think that really matters just in terms of what he can do on the field. I know opposing fan bases have had fun with that. You wouldn't expect anything less. I mean, if it was the case with a different player, Alabama fans would say the same thing. So that's to be expected. But, I mean, I wouldn't make too much of it. I mean, we knew going in that Bryce Young wasn't a 6'3", 220 or 230-pound quarterback. So I don't think it's really much to worry about there.
Well, Charlie, as always, we appreciate the time, my friend. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
There he goes. Charlie Potter, veteran of the Alabama beat, does an outstanding job for us there at BamaOnline.com. I'm sure you already have, but if you haven't, give Charlie a follow on Twitter at Charlie_Potter, Potter. Yes, that whole narrative with Bryce Young isn't going away anytime soon. You heard it even on the A-Day broadcast. He had a pass deflected, and you heard Kirk Herbstreit make mention of his measurables, his height, even in that regard. Forget about the fact that it was really just a hell of a play by Deontay Lawson. It really didn't have anything to do with height. It was just a true freshman linebacker in coverage making a play that a lot of third and fourth year guys don't. But it's going to be there. That drum beat isn't going away anytime soon. So just get ready for more of it. Going to head to a break. When we come back, more of a Friday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
Play. You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with BamaOnline.com senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tell you SEC town that'll be on fire this weekend. Probably a couple of them with the college baseball craze impacting 5 different towns in the SEC footprint. Fayetteville will be pretty crazy with the Razorbacks hosting NC State in super regional action out in Northwest Arkansas. But I don't think anywhere is going to top Starkville this weekend. Starkville's got Notre Dame coming in super regional play at the New Dude there in Stark, Vegas. First game set for tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. And if you've never been to a Mississippi State baseball game at the Dude, it's unlike anything you'll ever experience. You talk about exciting venues to attend, fun places to go, and those people know how to do it. Like, they have the soft cooler rule where you can have that 6-pack soft cooler. Typically you see it at Talladega or NASCAR events, that soft cooler. Well, you can take that soft cooler with beer into Dudy Noble. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a party over there. And you got Notre Dame coming in. Should be a lot of fun. Third inning up in Nashville, by the way. Vanderbilt with a 1-0 lead. As we told you earlier, you're going to have 3 super regionals that get underway today. NC State at Arkansas, first pitch coming up at 5 p.m. Central. And then Ole Miss out at Arizona on ESPNU at 8 p.m. Central tonight. And then the 2 series tomorrow that get underway, Tennessee, LSU. Knoxville is going to be a lot of fun this weekend, too. Think about all the pent-up angst that Tennessee fans are unleashing right now with this baseball team having the success it's having under Tony Vitello, who they're about to have to write a big check for, and not just a check, going to have to major upgrade Lindsey Nelson Stadium, the facilities there. Because that LSU job, speaking of LSU in town, Paul Maneri on his way out, do the Tigers, if they win that series, do they take Tony Vitello back with them to Baton Rouge? So some good baseball action around the Southeastern Conference this weekend. You've kind of grown to expect that, though. 6 SEC teams in super regional play. That's no big deal anymore. And again, the potential at least for 5 SEC teams to make the College World Series. We're going to head to a break. When we come back, Pops coming up on a Friday right here on Southern Fried Sports, presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier on Tide 100.9 FM. Pops and more right after this.
The Alabama football countdown clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Roll Tide! Roll Tide!
There are 85 days until Alabama football. Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Occasionally cloudy. We'll have scattered to numerous showers and thunderstorms around this afternoon and tonight. The high today 86, tonight's low 72. Tomorrow partially sunny, a chance of widely scattered afternoon thunderstorms. The high at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Born on this day in 1949, the drummer for those guys right there, Frank Beard, the only guy in ZZ Top that doesn't have a beard, but he has the surname. Dusty and Billy certainly have those beards, don't they? Set to visit Tuscaloosa, Alabama very soon here. Makeup show from the COVID year. The boys from Texas. Pop's a big fan of ZZ Top, right, Pops?
I just checked Billy Gibbons out on live with what's his name? That has the TV show live from his house where they play music.
Oh, Daryl Oates.
Daryl live with Daryl.
Or Daryl Hall, excuse me. It's John Oates. Hall and Oates. Yeah.
Yeah, Hall.
That's a good show. Yeah.
I mean, it's really good. I enjoy it, and Gibbons was killer.
Still out there making it happen, Pops.
I'm telling you, and Hall's very good too. Mm-hmm. Hall and Oates, they are really
Daryl
good.
Hall,
man.
Those guys are your age, Pops. Could you imagine being out on the road playing in front of crowds every night?
Check out our boy, the drummer with the Stones, is 80 years old.
Yeah, Charlie.
What in the
Charlie
world?
Watts. Yeah, you just couldn't see yourself doing it.
No, I mean, I it would be great too. I mean, I could be able to, but
right.
I mean, I can't imagine it. And I've seen him do it. You know.
You're having to break the front and backyard up into segments, you know. With that
I can't
double
even
cut
the grass all in one day.
And that heat's ratcheting it up on you.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, it's amazing those guys can go.
Yeah.
But Live from Daryl's House is a really good show.
You like that?
Every week they have somebody on there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Pops, we had our caller Lewis call up earlier in the show, and he asked me the question. And he specifically said, "I'd like to get Pops' thoughts on this as well."
Uh-oh.
He asked, most exciting sporting event you've ever attended.
Oh my.
I said it may bring up some deep wounds for Pops, you know.
Well, no, not really. The most favorite would have to be the Bowles-Marist high school football game.
Yeah, I think you've told us that before.
In Atlanta,
Georgia.
In Atlanta, Georgia. That was
mid-90s high school.
Yeah. Game. Yeah. But,
the Marist War Eagles, Pops, running that wishbone.
They
ran that wishbone, that triple option.
And you know, Bowles had never seen nothing like that.
Bowles was a predominantly wing T offense, but did have some wrinkles to that offense, which Mac Jones would later utilize as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a great game, but I'll tell you what, Pops, I talked about it earlier in the show. We were at that game in the backyard at your old alma mater back in the early to mid 80s when Emmett Smith was a sophomore at Pensacola Escambia High School, and that was a hell of a game, Pops.
Oh, well, you know, for some reason, I don't know why I forget that game. I don't know why it enters my mind. We're talking about Emmett Smith in high school. You know?
Yeah, we're talking about Leroy Butler. You know?
Leroy Butler. Why do I forget it? I don't get
because
brain dead. I guess
when we're asked about most exciting games, we default to wins.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a win for the Generals.
No.
You know, same thing. I don't know how your answer isn't the Lindsey Scott game in 1980, but I do because it was a loss, and you're trying. You're trying to protect yourself.
I mean, it was killer. But
yet, sitting right there in the end zone, he was running to.
It ran right to me in the end zone.
I wish
you could have heard a pin drop in that end zone. I mean, it was nobody could say a word. It was unbelievable. You know, the best part of that though was our boys in the press
Larry
box.
Munson. Yeah.
I mean, that was
foot through a steel chair. He said.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I could listen to that all day long.
He said there was going to be some property destroyed up in St. Simon's tonight by all those dog people, he said.
And there was, too.
We're out of it and gone. You know? Larry Munson, you're not going to do any better than that, Pops.
The Gators thought they had that game chalked up. I did, too. I thought we'd won that game. But Blue hit Lindsey Scott. That was all she wrote.
Yeah, your safety took a bad angle. Gave up the gate.
It was bad. And the boy went on and played with the Denver Broncos for a few years.
Tony Lilly.
Yeah. I said, gee, Manetti. That was a heartbreaker.
Mm-hmm. Now, losses like that, did they make after the game the beer any colder, or was the beer still cold for you?
Well, it was still cold. It was still cold.
Yeah, I don't think they mattered.
No,
you didn't obviously like those losses, but I don't think the beer was warm or anything.
Well, you know, the Bulldogs owned it. When Vince Dooley was coaching, the Bulldogs owned Florida. I mean, it was pathetic. Every year I lost a case of Natural Light. Every year.
That was the bet every year, a case of Natty Light?
A case of Natty Light. John, the genius Nelson, this friend of mine. He's a big Bulldog fan. He'd call me and we'd have to put a case on the line. I'd lose it every year.
Yeah, he kind of went in that week every year knowing he wasn't going to have to buy beer that week.
Oh, no, he knew Georgia. But it was Dooley had Florida's number. It was the dangest thing I ever saw. And, of course, Herschel Walker was just a beast. That was all there was. The best college running back
Spurrier came in and made good on the family business, though, boy. Oof.
Yeah.
The number he did on Ray Goff in Georgia. Oof.
Yeah. That's for sure. Ray didn't last long.
No. He said he would like to meet. I think he said one time he'd like to run up on Steve in a dark alley. He said, And when you did that with Spurrier, that's when Spurrier knew he had you right where he
wanted you. But Spurrier did that to a lot of people.
Oh God,
he was he could be a jerky.
Hey, Pops, I see where your baseball coach there at Florida, after that abysmal showing in the Gainesville Regional, says he's staying committed to the Florida baseball program. Pops, Kevin O'Sullivan. It'll be in your paper tomorrow or Sunday. You'll see it. Yeah.
I hadn't heard it, of course. I'm 2 days with the dollar short, but it. I still don't get it. I don't know what happened. We haven't heard the whole story on that deal.
There's more to the story, Pops thinks.
Sure, that's all there is to it. All there is to it. Oklahoma jumped on Florida State there yesterday, and that did that.
Yeah, your softball season's over, Pops. It seems like we jinxed Alabama last Friday.
I know.
I mean, that was the day that Fouts threw the perfect game, so maybe we didn't. But things changed quickly after that. Give Florida State a lot of credit, though.
Oh yeah, I do. I do. I mean, they came out, as far as I'm concerned, they came from nowhere.
They took it. Yeah.
Yeah. They had an outstanding World Series. And Oklahoma was hitting one offensively, and they had the pitching too. That lefty could throw. I thought.
Yeah.
He was the best pitcher out.
Gee.
Yeah.
Yeah. The crafty lefty. Throw that rise ball,
And it was hard. It was hard.
I think the stat was that Patty Gasso, the coach of Oklahoma, with those 4 or 5 national championships, every one of those teams, she's had a left-hander.
Right. And, I don't think I know she's won these national championships, but she's for a championship team, you don't hear much about her.
Yeah, she complains. She protests too much in games. She slows the game down too much, Pops. I mean, every other call, she's out of the dugout, Pops. I mean,
walking out there with a ponytail,
Yeah.
But I mean, the girl must know something.
Oh no, she does. Great coach, legendary coach, no doubt.
Alameda, they say, is Florida State's going to be coaching on the Canadian softball team.
Yeah. She's done a great job in Telly. Well, Pops, we got to get out of here on a Friday, but as always, we appreciate your time.
All right, man. We'll talk at y'all. We'll talk at y'all later.
Stay cool. There he goes, Pops. That's going to do it for a Friday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Thanks to Jacob Harrison. Thanks to Charlie Potter. Thanks to Pops. Your lunch whistle on a Friday. Southern Ale House, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Get your weekend started off right. Get by there for lunch today and maybe dinner tonight as well. They're going to have you covered with that great menu, whether it's plate dinners, whether it's burgers, whether it's the best sandwiches you'll ever put in your life. They got you. It's Southern Ale House, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Until 11 a.m. on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.